Hi, welcome to Independent Green Party, Green TV. I'm Kerry Campbell, Independent Green Party.
Hi, I'm Brooklyn Kinley with the Independent Green Party. Independent Green Party, Green TV focus is Independent Green Party candidates for local, state, and federal office.
Green Party, Green TV reports on positive Green Party, Green New Deal, eco-jobs for the economy.
Green Party solar jobs, wind jobs, geothermal jobs.
Green Party insulation jobs, conservation jobs, weatherization jobs.
Green Party rail jobs, building walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, and rail-friendly communities.
Green Party, Green TV is about positive Green Party, Green New Deal solutions.
Independent Green Party local, state, federal, and presidential candidates offer positive eco-solutions. Eco-capitalism's prices must tell the environmental truth. A green industrial revolution means jobs, and we need to cut taxpayer subsidies to zero for fossil fuels, big oil, big auto.
Have to change people's minds. That work has been done for us.
One of the things that from an outsider does need to be changed is the electoral system. If the Green Party in the United States is ever going to have a realistic chance of gaining a high office, the electoral system needs to be reformed first.
Well, can I question that?
Yeah, please do.
I mean, because we saw, if I understand correctly, we saw in Scotland recently, which also has a winner-take-all election system. You know, we saw the SNP suddenly go from nowhere to being the dominant party. And I don't know enough what's going on in Scotland to know exactly what happened. You know, it had a lot to do with their referendum, which has a lot to do with the economics of austerity and all that. But you know, we're told over and over that third parties can't win. Well, actually, in the history of the United States, there is a third-party presidential candidate who won at a time of great social upheaval, and that was Abraham Lincoln, who was a member of a third party at a time of great social transition. And he won as a third-party member while things were very much in flux. It's clear things are very much in flux right now. You know, I think if we're going to wait for electoral reform, we'll never get there. However, we could have that electoral reform right now. And by being a strong force in this election, we could force states to reform their electoral process right now on an emergency basis and implement ranked choice voting, which would get rid of splitting the vote. It would ensure that you can vote for an underdog as your number one, and if the underdog doesn't win, your vote is automatically reassigned to your number two choice. So there's a solution here which can be passed at the level of legislatures. We're forever being told that resistance is futile, but actually it's the other way around. It's like if we don't resist, everything else is futile because we're on a trajectory right now that we're not going to survive for very long. And in my view, it's our responsibility to do everything in our power to use every tool at our disposal to change that trajectory.
And it requires you to be the next Abraham Lincoln.
Not necessarily, but I think it requires people to reject the disempowerment that they're propagandized with 20 times a day that tells you you're powerless and there's no way you can solve this. You know, as a physician, you know, I have learned not to give people hopeless prognoses, you know, because you rarely know the whole story. You know, you rarely know, you don't want to be in the business of telling people they are about to die. You know, even if they have a terminal disease, they may be around for 6 months or a year or more. You know, I think our job as actors in society is to enable the best in us, you know, and enable our survival, enable justice, you know, enable peace, and to not be in the business of shutting down opportunities for transformational change where they still exist.
So you genuinely believe that this time next year you could be the next president of the United States?
What I usually say to that is, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm not ruling it out. You know, I mean, we could have another Katrina event, for example. We could lose another city that could fall into the ocean for some storm or something, you know. We could have some incredible awakening. Wall Street could crash again. People may be ready to throw out the corporate Wall Street-sponsored political parties. There are things that could happen. In the words of Woody Allen, half of life is showing up. I think the same is true in politics. You want to be there when the crisis happens. And we are living in that age of crisis. We're also living in the age of the black swan right now, where extremely unlikely and unpredictable things are happening that we would not have dreamed were possible, both for better and for worse. And I think it's our job as actors in society to constantly optimize our best chances for not only to survive, but to thrive.
So if the decision then is to reject the corporate-sponsored politics, it's going to be between you and Donald Trump.
Well, in my view, Donald Trump's fortune is pretty corporate-sponsored, so he would not be eligible either. He may not accept money from other corporate predators, but it would be hard not to characterize him as one as well.
So short of winning the presidency, what would qualify as a success for you?
I think success is getting closer to survival. I think success is changing our trajectory, which right now is headed, in a very dismal direction. In my view, we need to build a principled political alternative. And simply by participating in the dialogue, I spend a lot of my time going out to communities, to frontline communities, to supporting mothers of murdered African American sons who marched in Washington on Mother's Day. It's supporting that community. It's supporting the resistance to pipelines, to people who are locking down, who are sitting in. It's supporting students who are refusing to pay their debt. It's supporting frontline communities who really are the vitality of the political transition, and encouraging both their struggles and making common cause with them. Because when the struggles for justice also become a political struggle, then we reach ignition. Then we have the numbers that it takes. Because if you put together the many movements for justice and we work together in a common political cause that puts people, planet, and peace over profit, it's both the conceptually the right thing to do. Those issues need to be supported, but it's also building that coalition that really understands we're not going to get out of here just by achieving peace and allowing the environment to crash. We're not going to get out of here just by, changing our energy system and not changing how we destroy, economies and wars around the world. We really need an integrated, holistic, agenda for people, planet, and peace over the profiteering system. The minute we do that, we will get there. And one of the ways we put this is to say, we may not win the office, but we can win the day by laying the groundwork and building the momentum. So if we don't win it this time, we're positioned to win it next time. And in this race, we are so much farther ahead of where we were 4 years ago for having run this before.
A final couple of questions from me. Would you describe yourself as a socialist?
So yes, I've been asked this question before, and what I would say to that is, if you define socialism as sort of the golden rule, kind of doing unto others applied to the economy, or if you define socialism as democracy applied to the economy, so that it's an economy in which the people who are impacted actually have a controlling say in how the economy works. If that's how you define socialism, I would say yes, bring it on.
And that's how you define socialism?
Yes.
Okay. And following on from that then, has Bernie Sanders' popularity, has that had a detrimental effect on the Green Party's popularity? Because people who would have gone further left than the Democrat Party before are now encouraged to come back in.
We shall see. I mean, it could be very much the opposite of that. In my view, what Bernie Sanders is doing is very good. And, I think what he's doing is good because what people are doing is good. I think we've seen Occupy Wall Street and the debt crisis kind of come together in the public mind. And there is a rebellion going on right now. And we see it not only in Bernie Sanders' campaign, we see it in the Trump campaign as well. It's, I think, some misguided people who are angry without knowing what they're angry about, so they're ready to pin it on immigrants. But it's the same kind of, frustration and outrage with the system. So I think there is a revolt. And, Bernie is helping to articulate within the Democratic Party. The problem is that it's hard to have a revolution or a revolutionary campaign inside a counter-revolutionary party. And the Democratic Party has a very clear track record for how it will fight this. And we've begun to see how it will fight this. It's extremely unlikely, I'm sorry to say, that Bernie's going to get the nomination, or if he gets the nomination, that he will have anywhere the autonomy to act on his agenda. Because the predators are not less in charge of the Democratic Party, they are more in charge of the Democratic Party because money is more concentrated and more behind closed doors. And so just to be clear, ever since George McGovern won the nomination of the Democratic Party, a peace candidate who won in 1972, the Democratic Party changed its rules, created super PACs and Super Tuesdays, basically, so that you couldn't squeak by, so that you had to have gobs of money, you had to have support of big corporate money. And they also began using the smear campaigns. Anybody remember the Dean scream against Howard Dean that made him out to look like a madman? And they redistricted Dennis Kucinich, got him out of the way. Jesse Jackson, they did another smear campaign against him after he had won 12 major Midwestern primaries. So he was riding the power of the civil rights era. So the Democratic Party has a good track record for what we call the kill switch against real rebellious campaigns. And Bernie has already said that he will not only endorse Hillary, but he will work for Hillary. And you have to ask, is that a revolutionary campaign that is easily can get packed back inside of a corporate party and a candidate who was on the board of Walmart and all the rest of it? So in my view, Bernie is stimulating a very important discussion, but our commentary on that is that yes, that's important, but the party counts. You have to have a party that actually supports the agenda and that isn't going to sabotage it.
The biggest way people give up power is by not knowing that we have it to start with. Well, we've got it, and we're going to use it. And it doesn't come from the big corporate political parties that are bought and paid for by Wall Street. Their choices are not our choices.
Their candidates are not our candidates. Their economy is not our economy.
Their government is not our government. Their prisons are not our prisons. Their police are not our police. And their endless wars are not our wars. And their recovery for the few is not our recovery. The 1% is quaking in their boots because we're waking up to the fact that we have the power and we're going to use it. We have the power to make the minimum wage a living wage. We have the power to turn the tide on climate change. We have the power to create a welcoming path to citizenship. We have the power to end the racist war on drugs. It's in our hands. Together, we can build a world that puts people and the planet and peace over profit. That's in our hands. Our power to create this new world. It's not in our hopes. It's not in our dreams. It's in our hands. Thank you.
I'm Daryl Kearney, and I'm running for president. I'm taking all the money out of politics. We're not accepting any donations at all. I'm going to run my entire campaign off of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, social media, I want to teach young people that there's another way you can do politics in this country. Time is running out, and we need somebody who knows that. I'm tired of war. I'm tired of us being divided and conquered, and it breaks my heart every time I see the bombs falling. The climate is changing. The ice caps are melting. The rivers are rising. The hurricanes are devastating us. But I also think there's something we can do about it. If there's 7 billion people on this planet, there are 7 billion jobs fixing the damage we've done. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, so I think I can handle Congress. I'm Daryl Cherney, and the future is in our hearts.
So I find it very interesting that you just said, unfortunately, you don't think Bernie Sanders will get the nomination. From an electioneering standpoint, surely the best outcome for the Green Party would be for Trump to get the Republican nomination and Clinton to get the Democrat nomination, because that leaves so many people for the Green Party to sweep up.
That's a worthy analysis, and you may be right. I've learned sort of not to second guess the horse race. And, you know, I try to operate best on, or shall we say, I try to operate on principles that are right. Because if you're playing the horse race, you can just get into all kinds of trouble and it's extremely unpredictable. I feel like I'm running in this campaign now because this is a Hail Mary moment. And we don't have long to fix this crisis that we're facing. And I feel like I'm going to run long and hard, as long as I can, and as hard as I can, and as loud as I can, because I am quite convinced that we need a real political revolution with a new political party that can actually act on these revolutionary principles if we're going to get out of here alive. And as a medical doctor, and someone who's worked intensively in the area of the environment, I am just so clear that we don't have a choice, that we have to fight with every ounce of our strength right now, and that if we're going to get out of here alive, and I don't just mean for our children, I mean for those of us who are in this room, that we're looking at likely disasters that are going to hit on our watch, in our lifetimes, if we don't turn this around. And I think it's going to take every ounce of our energy and our determination to do that. So I don't spend too much time trying to, you know, read the tea leaves. I actually spend most of my time really focused on what's the next strategic move we can make to build this movement.
Thank you, Jill. I don't know if there are questions from the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand high in the air. If we can go right at the back.
Hello. My name's Brian. I was born and raised in the U.S. I agree with most of what you said. I voted for Ralph Nader in 2004. I voted for Cynthia McKinney in 2008. So I'm totally with you. I think we need a third party. I don't think the two-party system is going to go anywhere but on the same path that we're on, which is death and destruction. My question is, are you going to run, is the Green Party running in every state? Because one of the things I've noticed in previous years, I haven't followed recently, which is why I asked the question, but in previous years, the Green Party runs this safe state strategy where they only run in states that the race isn't close because they don't want to be seen as taking votes from the Democratic Party, which to me defeats the whole purpose of building a third party. If you're going to build a third party, build it in the whole country. Don't just build it where you're not going to threaten the hegemony that already exists.
Yes.
So are you running in every state?
Definitely. So we are fighting to get on the ballot in every state. Right now we're on the ballot for, I believe, about 65% of voters, but rapidly working our way up. So we hope to be on the ballot for all voters if we can, but there are some states that make it really hard to get on the ballot. So it may be 90%. In the last race we were on for about 84% of voters. So we're trying to be there as a choice for everybody. That safe state strategy was actually more rumor than reality, and that applied during the Cobb campaign, and Cobb disavowed it. I'm not sure where that rumor mill got going, but if there might have been a time when he entertained the idea, but he definitely decided that was a terrible idea, and the party's been very uniform on that. The people who support that are basically Democrats and not Greens, for exactly the reasons that you say. You know, if we're serious about this, we really have to go all out. And there's no way that they are ever going to change the voting system until they realize that, that we really are a threat. We're not going away. And they could get rid of that threat if they wanted by creating this ranked choice voting. But then they couldn't use fear anymore to keep people from voting Green. So then they're really in a fix here, because they know if they remove the fear factor, they're going to lose a lot of public support. So at any rate, I agree with you completely. We really have to stand up and fight like our lives depend on it. This is not a dress rehearsal. This isn't just something you do where it's safe. This is about getting rid of the predatory governance that we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Look for another question now, please. If we could come, sorry, I'm making you run right onto the front. Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you for speaking tonight. You've talked about sustainable agriculture as a key part of your economic plan. I was wondering if you could go into a bit more detail about exactly what kind of that economy would look like.
Great, great, thank you. Meaning the agriculture part of it?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So the agricultural transformation is really important. As you probably know, it's a major source of carbon emissions, the way that food, in our globalized food system gets moved, like I think it's 1,000 miles on average, which is an incredible waste of money. And then the fossil fuels that are used in this industrialized system, as well as the fertilizers, are energy intensive. And the pesticides are also fossil fuel derived and extremely toxic and poisonous. So it's a very deadly system, and it's a system that cannot be sustained, for a whole lot of reasons, but including that it just doesn't hold up well under extremely variable climate as well, that you need really small, more labor-intensive, small agriculture and localized and regionalized food systems, which are not only how you have a more energy efficient system, but it's also way healthier. In the same way that Cuba's health got so much better, it had an awful lot to do with the fact that they started eating this sustainable and largely plant-based, locally produced diet. And we get so much better from eating that way. So it's a really important part of the energy equation, but is also really a critical part of how we get healthy as a society. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Look for another question now, please. If we could go to the number on the end here.
So earlier you were mentioning how George McGovern is an example of why we should get money out of politics. Interestingly, George McGovern actually supported laws that would make campaign finance a lot more lax. He wanted money to be in politics because he saw it as a reason why he was able to do so well. He was able to get a few millionaires to get onto his campaign. Don't you think having one or two angel donors could be good for third-party candidacy to get it off the ground? And then maybe you can get some more grassroots support later. Don't you think that would help your campaign rather than hurt it?
So first, just to clarify, I didn't mean to say that McGovern was a clean money candidate, rather that he was a peace candidate. So yeah, I've heard very mixed reviews about him in other respects. So thank you for clarifying that. Currently, our internal rule about money is this, that we don't think money should come with strings attached, whether it comes from good sources or bad sources. We don't think that money should buy policy. So our rule for money, just in case anybody happens to have really deep pockets in this room, our rule about money is that, number one, we don't take money from corporations because we feel corporations should not be political actors. But in addition to that, we don't take money from people who are corporate officers who have a lobbyist. That is, if you are trying to influence policy to the degree that you hire a lobbyist, that money comes with an implicit string attached to it. So that's the money that we've set aside. If there are others out there who do not have a lobbyist that happen to have money, we will take your money.
Readily as well.
We don't have many of those donors, I must tell you, unfortunately.
Thank you for your question. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. So if we could please go to just here on the end with the glasses. Yep.
Hi. So when you mentioned that not only environmental change is needed, but a holistic system for people, planet, and peace, it made me wonder if running as a Green Party candidate might be averting a large portion of the electorate that isn't necessarily keen on the idea of green and all the sort of presuppositions that come along with that term, but might be open to a lot more of what you're saying that they wouldn't have known about had they just kind of titled you with the term green. And I was wondering if you are firm on staying with the Green Party, or if you might have ever thought about running independently, or what your thoughts on what party you run.
Great question. And the situation now, you cannot run as an independent unless you have gobs of money. So, those are the independents that we're seeing running, like Mayor Bloomberg. But how independent is he? He's running on the same corporate money with the same corporate mindset and agenda. So, people who talk about, oh, isn't it great, we're going to have an independent. It's basically an independent who either is an oligarch or is being funded by the oligarchs, and that's what all of them are about to start with. Now, Bernie is different. Bernie's funded by small donors.
Be part of the positive solution. The Independent Green Party and Green Party recruits candidates for local, state, and federal offices across the U.S. Contact the Independent Green Party through their webpage at www.votejoinrun.us.
In Virginia, people can contact the Independent Green Party at 703-351-1235. Email the Independent Green Party State Chairman, Joe Otto, at usrepublic@aol.com. And check out the Independent Green's YouTube channel, or contact the Independent Green Party on the Independent Green Party Facebook page.
That's this edition of Independent Green Party Green TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brooklyn Kinlay, Independent Green Party.
I'm Kerry Campbell, Independent Green Party. See you again next time on Green Party Green TV.